Okay, good evening, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Mark Caress. I'm the BSUK Safeguarding Lead. So what we're going to do tonight is just walk you through the best practices for safeguarding, just so that you can get yourselves ahead at the moment, so that when we get the go-ahead to actually start play, it's not sort of slowing you down. You can be sort of one jump ahead, get things done while you can, until we can sort of throw a ball as soon as we're able to, really. Okay. Next slide, please, Chris. We've got a few slides, so you don't have to look at me the whole time. If we can go to the topics that are going to be covered, if Chris, you can move things along a little bit. Chris, are you able to move the slides along? We seem to have got stuck a little bit. Okay, fantastic. Well, what we're going to be talking about today is just looking at what the safeguarding requirements are. Predominantly, it falls into two categories. It's those that have got youth teams and those teams that have got youth players. So they're slightly different requirements, but it's just so that you understand where you fall and what camp you're in. Then we'll have a look at safeguarding training, what that means, what you need to get, and just a little bit about what is available out there at the moment. And we've got Childline, for example, that is active and still going at the moment. And there's help available as well if you know of vulnerable adults or adults at risk as well. So we can signpost you to all of those, and then we can take it from there. So if we have a look at the safeguarding requirements for youth teams, so if you can move on one, Chris. Chris, if you're able to move the slides on. Aha, fantastic. Right, so for safeguarding for youth teams then, we need to have at least one coach within the organisation that's looking after the youth section to have safeguarding training. And that is to have done an appropriate course, and we can talk you through what is appropriate, what isn't. There's lots of courses out there, and generally if they take about 3 to 4 hours, then they'll cover everything that needs to be done. If they're shorter than that, it's likely that they don't really touch all the bases that we need for that sort of environment. So all youth coaches must have a valid DBS check, and we have to recheck every year. So they have to be less than a year old, the checks. You can sign up to an update service as well, so you can fill out the form once, and then every year it automatically updates, but it has to be a check done every year. And the update service is particularly good if you haven't got a very transient workforce. So if you've got people in the clubs or the teams that have been there for years and years and are likely to be there for a lot longer, get them on the update service. If you've got a lot of helpers coming in, mums and dads from the team or from the youth players as well that want to help, we can get those done as and when. Unfortunately, we're not a big enough sport to be able to do this online. We have to do a paper-based version of the DBS check, but we can do all of that for you. We run it all for you. It's completely free for volunteers. So all it takes is 5 minutes to fill out the form. There's a little bit of producing documents just to approve who you are, etc. But it's a really, really straightforward process, and we've been well tested on it now, and we can get that done very, very quickly for you. And all youth teams have to have a safeguarding officer as well. This is a very important one. There has to be somebody dedicated from the club's point of view that is responsible for looking after all the young people and making sure that the coaches have got what they need, the DBS checks are done, and that there's a person to go to. So if anyone's got a problem, no matter how big or small, they know that they can go and see somebody. And one of the things that clubs often fail to do is let people know who the safeguarding officer is. So somebody on paper is doing it, but they don't let the people know. And so if there is a problem, nobody knows who to go to. So it is quite important that if you are the safeguarding officer, you do let people know who you are. Doesn't mean you have to be at every game, every training session, etc. But you just need to make sure that people know how they can contact you if and when they need to. And one of the most important things here as well, we need to know who you are as well. We have to monitor all the teams that we have, and we have to make sure that we've got a record of who does what, and what training people have got. So if we don't know who you are, who the safeguarding officers are, how to contact you, it's very difficult for us to sort of keep up to date with those sort of things. We have a mail out, we have a little email web thing that goes out once every 6 weeks or so. That's got all the information about safeguarding, and we like to get you onto the list on that so we can send it out to you, so we can keep you up to date with what's what. So that's it for youth teams then. So that's relatively quite straightforward. The tricky bit is if you're an adult team with youth players. So that's what we're looking at now, adult teams with youth players. So the basic requirement is that all the coaches would have to have a DBS check. So if you've got one youth player or 20, the coach would have to have a DBS check because you're dealing with under 18s, so that has to be done. And if you have 3 or more youth players playing on a team, you're then considered to be a youth team, and so you'd have to have the same requirements as we've just gone through. So you'd have to make sure that somebody's got safeguarding training, all the coaches have got DBS checks, we know who you are, etc., and that you're feeding the information back to us at the time. This can often get very muddled when you're out there in the field as to whether or not you're an adult team with youth players and how much you have to have. Certainly with softball, it's a little bit more complicated. With baseball, it seems to be a bit more straightforward. You tend to have youth teams associated with the adult teams, so they're separate, and the kids all play together, and then some of them play up with the adults teams, etc. afterwards, but they have a youth section on there. With softball, there's far fewer youth teams that are out there, so you tend to find that you have youth players playing with the adults. And this is where it can get slightly muddled, because we often get queries from people saying, well, they're my son, my daughter, they're playing with me, so I surely don't have to be DBS checked, I don't have to have safeguarding, we don't need a safeguarding officer because they're my child and they're with me when they're playing. And for all intents and purposes, they're absolutely right. You know, the adult would look after the child and make sure that's okay. But for us, for the sport, it doesn't really help us, because, you know, the rules are that if you have youth players playing on adult teams, then you need to make sure that we've got the right infrastructure, we've got the right training, we've got the right checks being carried out. And just because you say you're the parent of one, if anybody was looking in at us from, excuse me, from outside, it wouldn't make sense to them why we didn't get checks done on that particular team, DBS checks, safeguarding training, etc. So you have to be a little bit careful with how that goes. Might be a good time if we take any questions at the moment. So if there's any out there, I'll be happy to answer any. If not, I'll carry on in a second.
Hi, it's Becky from ACES in Manchester. I just had a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
So we've got at least 2 under 18s in the current team, and you mentioned coaches.
Yeah.
We don't have a coach. We're kind of we're just an amateur team really. We only set up last year. So who would you recommend apart from the safeguarding officer has the DBS check if we don't have coach? It
would generally fall to the team captains at that stage. Yeah. So it's the person that's organising the team, yeah, and doing all the sort of the admin for it, making sure people turn up on time, etc. Yeah, would so kind of by default. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so captain and vice captain plus safeguarding officer probably makes sense then.
Yeah, you just need somebody that's kind of doing the admin role as much as anything else, so that they know when people are going to be turning up to places, they know who's training, who's not training, etc. Because they're the ones that, you know, if somebody else was running a session and they didn't know it was happening, things could happen. Whereas if they're planning the session, letting people know about it, there's more control, and it makes sense to have them as the checked person.
Okay.
Any other questions? Because normally everybody likes to come up with, oh, you know, I've got this, this, and this on my team. How does that work? And it can get quite complicated. Certainly with softball, if you've only got 1 or 2 youth players, it's sometimes better to operate on a league system, so that the whole league would have a safeguarding officer that covers the whole league, and then you just get like the team captains for the individual teams get DBS checked, and you kind of run it in that sort of way until you get more youth players. What tends to happen though with youth players is if you bring a youth player onto an adult team and they enjoy it, they tell their friends, and sometimes they want to come and join. So all of a sudden you can go from having just one to having 4 or 5 quite quickly. And that's where you just need to be wary and just make sure you've got the things in place then to make sure that happens quite possibly. It is worth noting though that having youth players playing on an adult team, you've got to make sure that the environment's right for them. Because I've done it myself, you know, I come from a baseball background and both my sons have played baseball, and we've all been on the same team together and we had a great time playing together, but the environment isn't always suitable for young players. And we tend to say that they need to be 14 plus to sort of play, although there's no hard and fast rules and it can depend on ability and confidence as much as anything. But you know, you have to think about what sort of environment they're walking into. If it's mainly an adult team, adult themes, adult language, it might not be the most suitable one. And although most people are very good at trying to sort of tone things down and accommodating, you will get the odd thing that comes up and happens that may not be right. So you just need to check that and make sure that the parents are aware of that. It's a great thing to have the youth players playing because they're often far better than the adults when they play. So it brings the whole skill level of the team can increase massively by having some decent youth players playing with you, and it makes the whole playing experience much better. But it's not without its problems. So you just need to sort of weigh up the pros and cons really when you let people onto the team, and just make sure that the parents are on board with it. They understand. You know, not often they're playing alongside them as well, but not always. And then you want to be careful that it's not treated as like childcare for them, whereas they just drop them off, disappear for a couple of hours, come back at the end of the session and collect them. So there's a few things like that that you just need to be aware about. Any other questions at all? No? Okay, if we move on to safeguarding training then, and have a look at what we've got with that. Right, a little while ago, the CPSU, and they're the people from the NSPCC that deal with the sport side of things. It's the Child Protection in Sport Unit. That's like an offshoot of NSPCC. They stipulated that to have safeguarding training, you need to attend a face-to-face or interactive safeguarding training course. And the reason for that is safeguarding can be quite an emotive subject, and it can bring up all sorts of memories and things, and people may have had problems in the past themselves. They go through training, it can bring up all sorts of emotions. They need to talk it through with people basically, rather than just do an online course and just sort of tick boxes and get on with it. So they've said that face-to-face training is the way forward. Obviously at the moment we can't do that because we can't do that, and the interactive training courses are still being developed by CPSU and the NSPCC to make sure they're fit for purpose. So for the time being, and I suspect for all of this year, we'll accept online training courses as being fully acceptable for safeguarding officers training, or for coaches having to have safeguarding training, etc. So that makes it a lot easier for you to get that done for people now, while we're kind of in lockdown and away from the games. Because that's something that you can sign up for, you can get the courses, they can start doing them now, they can have them completed, so that when we do get the go ahead, everybody can go run into the field and it's all good. So I fully recommend that if you've got people that need safeguarding training, jump on it now while there's an online course that is acceptable, because it won't last like that forever. Next year, if we go back to normal, whatever normal looks like, we'll probably have to do the face-to-face training courses, which take a little bit longer to organise and aren't as readily available. So strike while the iron is hot, get people that need online courses on them now, and then it'll be a lot easier for everybody sort of in the future. We've got listed on there some of the approved courses. So we've got Sports Coach UK, the Time to Listen course. We operate our own Time to Listen course for baseball, softball. I actually deliver that for you as well. So if you want to get a group of coaches together or people, I can come up and down wherever it is in the country and deliver that for you as well. So that's no problem with that. We just need to sort of book rooms and sort of make sure it's viable and we've got enough people to make it worthwhile, but that's an option. And there's various courses that are run by local sports centres under normal circumstances, and even some by schools as well. If you've got people that have been like school training teaching assistants or actual teachers themselves taking place, they'll be fully trained on safeguarding, so they won't need to do additional sports ones because they would have done far more than we cover in our sports courses as well. So that's always useful to know. Fantastic. Any questions on the safeguarding training? Chris, if you could just increase the slide to the next one. We're just reiterating really that while we're in lockdown, that the online courses are fully acceptable, and we actually offer them ourselves as well. From our website, you can order an online training course. We tend to have it there as refresher training for people that have done it, because safeguarding courses have a shelf life of about 3 years. So after that time, we just need to have a refresher. And on the online course is ideal for that. But also at the moment, because we can't do face-to-face, it's the best way of doing it at the minute. And we can offer them for £25 a person. There are other courses out there. You can have a look round. Doubt if you'll find it any cheaper than that, to be honest with you. But, you know, by all means, have a look round and see what you can do. And like I say, this is the best time to do it because people are sitting at home. They've got some time on their hands. They've got nothing else to do. They're getting bored. They want to go out there. Get them to do this now, and then it's not a problem later on. Okay, any other questions as we're going along?
Yeah, I don't know whether you can hear me. It's Mark Saunders here.
Yeah.
How often does a safeguarding course need to be done?
Every 3 years. We say 3 years for that. But once you've done a full course, you can do an online refresher course to keep you up to date. Because the information doesn't really change. It's just that we just need to make sure that you're sort of current with it and you've read it recently.
I have a question.
Great. Yeah, thanks.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
The BSUK one that you do for £25, does that cover both coach and safeguarding? Because unfortunately, I happen to be both.
Yes, yeah, it would cover you for any of them. For if you're a safeguarding officer, coach, whatever, it's basically the same training. It's just sometimes if you're more involved with the club in an admin side, then some of the things that we can go through on that is how to organise DBS checks, etc. Whereas if you just need safeguarding training, it's fully covered. The one we offer is the one that's from the NSPCC and the CPSU unit, so it's specifically targeted at a sports environment, so it's ideal for what we need.
Okay, cool.
Any other questions? No? Chris, if you could move on one. Just going to signpost you here to the website on the BSUK website here. We've got a section on safeguarding, and that's the cover page on it. It's got lots and lots of info on there, and it's a great resource for you if you need to download anything at all. So we've got policies and procedures, we've got DBS advice on how to fill out the form, how to get them, advice if you're traveling abroad with a team, things that you need to take, insurance, that type of thing. Advice on running a safe club. You've got job descriptions for safeguarding officers and for other volunteers in your clubs, how to get your safeguarding training, parental permission forms, you can download them from there. So it's an absolute, it's a one-stop shop really for all your safeguarding needs. If you go to the website, you can get everything you want from that. And if you need policies and procedures for your clubs, your teams, take ours, change the names and use it. We'd rather use our policies and procedures because we know that they're fit for purpose, and then you're adopting exactly the same as what we are asking our clubs to do. So by all means, take the policies, copy them, word for word, just change the name instead of BSUK, put your own sort of team on there or whatever, and do that. And everything on there is available for you, and you know it's a contact us section on there as well. So if you've got any queries, questions, we'll happily answer them for you. Safeguarding is one of those subjects that it's understood that it needs to be done, but nobody's that keen on doing it. And I get that. You know, I've been involved with clubs as well, and I understand it's not always as straightforward as it can be. But everything you need to know is on that web page, or we will happily talk to you about it as well. All you have to do is pick up the phone, drop me an email, and then whatever information you need, we'll make sure that you've got what you can get. Any questions at all on things that you might want, need?
Hi, sorry, I'd understood something correctly. I'm a secondary school teacher. So someone said my teacher training will cover me in terms of safeguarding. I wouldn't necessarily have to do safeguarding course top. Or...
So you were breaking up a bit there. Could you just say that again for me?
Yeah, sorry, it's my laptop. So I'm a secondary school teacher. I've been for 16 years. Would my training that I have as a teacher, does that definitely cover me in terms of safeguarding? Or
Yes.
would you recommend, would it be beneficial for me to do the course that you guys run as well? Or would it literally just be repeating stuff that I already know?
I would say that you're trained up as much as you need to, and I know with the schools in particular, they do it. They do refresher training quite regularly.
Yeah.
Safeguarding is safeguarding. All we show it is in a sports environment. So we do a sort of skimmed version of what you've probably been on, and all the training that you've had. So we just tailor it for the sports environment, really. If you've got all of that training, I wouldn't say you need to do anything else. If you want to, that's absolutely fine. There's no problem doing it, but I wouldn't say you need to under any circumstances.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Chris, if you'd like to move on, just on to the next slide. This is just from the NSPCC. We've had some communication from them just to remind everybody that obviously once schools are shut down and children are at home with their families and that sort of stuff, it isn't necessarily a safe environment for all the children. And so it's just to remind everybody that the NSPCC is still out there, still functioning, still there to support and to make sure everything is happening. So if you do hear of anything, you can contact the NSPCC or Childline for advice on how to go forward at any time. Obviously, when the children at school, they're being seen regularly by people that look out for particular problems. Now that they're not being seen by anybody, the potential for some children is quite high. So it's just a reminder that, you know, we can help as well. We can signpost you, we can get involved. But if you hear of anybody or want some advice, the NSPCC is probably the best place to go to in the first instance to find out what's what. And also for vulnerable adults as well, it's a bit more of a complex subject than safeguarding with children, because with children it's very straightforward. With the adults it's much more complex, as I say, because there's so many different categories, and once you're an adult you tend to look out for yourself as well. So anything that you do to help an adult has to be done with cooperation from them and their consent as well for them to move forward. But if you know of people that are struggling as well, there are people that we can signpost as well. The Anscraft Trust is one of those that looks after those sort of people, and we can signpost you to those and get advice as well. And that information also is on our safeguarding website. Although it's not technically safeguarding, it is another sort of branch of it, and we like to incorporate it with our safeguarding policies, procedures, etc. So it's just to remind people that there's help out there at any time. Even though we're not playing the sport, we're still kind of active and we're still doing stuff. Right, that's it from the slides. I'm open for questions now. So if you'd like to ask any questions, if anybody has got anything, we'll be more than happy to answer those. We have had one come in from an umpire that was just questioning how they can monitor the game whilst social distancing. Obviously, we're still uncertain at the moment of when we'll start playing and what the requirements are going to be for us. So we'd have to answer that closer to the time. But it goes without saying that no matter what comes up, we'll have to adapt and adjust to make sure that the games can happen, that we follow the rules and we allow play to sort of take place. It might be that we need 2 people to umpire a game instead of 1, just so that people can stand further back or be in different vantage positions so they don't miss anything, but they're not putting themselves at risk. So we'll know more once the government sort of says that we can start playing again. Hopefully it'll be a month, 6 weeks, maybe 2 months before that happens. But as soon as we are, we'll have clear ideas of what we can and can't do. And obviously we'll be sending those out to people for advice on playing and on safeguarding, and it will all be wrapped up together, and we'll have that information available for you as soon as we know exactly what we're dealing with. Any other questions at all from anybody?
Mark, yes, sorry, I should have asked when you were talking about the training courses, how many coaches would you need to make a BSUK training session viable?
6+ really.
Okay.
But it could be that, you know, if you haven't got enough in your particular club or teams or whatever, we can go and try and get others to come in as well. So if you've got 4 or 5 that want to do it, let me know, and then we'll try and invite some others from the local area to sort of pad it out a little bit.
Okay. Are you going to be running those? Are you going to be doing them on Zoom or online?
I will adapt to that, but the NSPCC are still finalising what the training course looks like at the moment. And once they've finalised that, then I'll go through an orientation with them, so I'll be able to deliver it, and then I can start doing that. So yes, they will go to sort of Zoom and sort of like FaceTime or whatever. Yep. But we're not quite there yet, and we take our lead from the NSPCC because they're the sort of the experts in it, and they've been trying to get it through as quickly as they can. But obviously, it does take a few weeks just to get everything right.
Sure. Thanks very much for that.
Mark, you while we're on the subject of the NSPCC, could you go over the safeguarding process just very briefly about vulnerable adults?
Yeah, basically, there's lots of different categories. I won't bore you with all the different ones, but if you feel that somebody is struggling or somebody is vulnerable, it doesn't really cover, well, it can cover mental health as well, but it's not predominantly that somebody's just having trouble being in lockdown at the moment. It would be more so that they may be being bullied, being taken advantage of, that sort of thing, you know. Then the best thing to do is to contact me. We'll talk it through, and then I can sort of get all the information together, and then we can contact the Anne's Craft Trust and talk it through with them to get the right answers, because we're sort of relatively new with vulnerable adults. We've got policies for it. We've got the connections there. We've never had any issues thus far that we've had to deal with. So we're sort of testing our way as much as anything else. So I wouldn't want to promise you anything, because with all of these things with safeguarding, there's lots of things that you have to go through, and it's never something that you can say it's going to be okay, we're going to get everything sorted. We might not be able to, but we can certainly get help, and we can ask the right questions, and we can go to the experts, and we can try and make things better for whoever's out there. So it's just finding out what the problem is really, and then we can look at how we can help with that and how we can move it forward. Any other?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
The safeguarding vulnerable adults and stuff, where does the BSUK stand on mental health? As it's becoming not so much with lockdown, but in general. I mean, I just had to do a 2-day course at work for first aid on mental health, because I work at university.
We take it very seriously. We've got 2 of our staff members are trained mental health first aiders, and they've been on the courses as well, and they're on call to answer any questions. So we have people in the organisation that are, I wouldn't say experts, but are trained in how to sort of help with that sort of thing. And again, we've got contacts with people, organisations like Mind, etc., that we can go to get further help and advice and that type of thing. So yeah, we will offer advice for anybody's well-being. It falls under sort of the welfare section that we offer. So we cover all aspects of that.
Cool. And that's on the website, on the BSUK website, under safeguarding, or under?
Yeah, well, we've got that under. We've got most of the things under the safeguarding website. But if you can't find anything there, we've got an email address called welfare. It's welfare@bsuk.com. Just ping us a question, and then we can take it from there, or info@, or just get in contact with us, and we'll make sure it gets to the right person, whatever email address you use, and we can get people to sort of help you as quickly as we can. But yeah, we have mental health. It's obviously very, very, I wouldn't say big business, but it's very common out there now, and you know, there's a lot of talk about it in the press, etc. So yes, we are aware of that, and we are there to help and to make sure everybody's gotten to be as good as they can be.
Yeah, it's becoming big bet businesses. That's the thing. It's just within the sport. It's, you know, when people get frustrated and will lash out, or, you know, break down or whatever. It's, you know, unfortunately I've seen it happen at work. It's just wondered where if it was being looked at in sport. I know there's the programme coming on telly with Prince Harry. Yeah. William, sorry, with the footballers and stuff, and that's what brought it to my attention. Was, I wondered if you guys were on the ball as such, looking at it as well.
Absolutely, we are. Yes, like I say, we've got 2 of our staff members. There's only 13 of us, so we've got 2 of them trained in that. So that ratio is pretty good for the staff on that, and they're available to help, and they can talk you through it and offer advice, etc. So yes, we are on the case with that. And we're looking at anything that comes up like that. We always look at, you know, we're there to try and support as many people as possible. We want people to have a really positive experience playing our sports and to enjoy it. And obviously that in itself can be very good for your mental health, is by playing sport and socialising with people and having fun. So, you know, we want to make that environment as good as it can be for everybody, and as safe as we can for the youngsters, for vulnerable adults, for people that are feeling under the weather, whatever it is. We want it to be good for everybody.
And just to touch on the subject of mental health, last week was Mental Health Awareness Week. Myself and a couple other BSUK employees did a couple videos on it, and I was on the British Baseball podcast and did about an hour chat on mental health and the sports. It's not a substitute for training by any means, but just something to listen to if you're interested in some of the resources as well. And I'm not one of the 2 trained BSUK employees. So it's certainly something we are very aware of and looking to build up as well.
Okay, thanks.
Anything from anybody else? Fine, in that case, thank you very much for participating. This recording will be available. It'll be available to view online again. If you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch. We will always be able to answer your questions.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Whew, how are we doing, Chris? Is everyone gone?
They are now. Yeah, awesome. That was great. Sorry to interject there. I got a text message saying via Joelle from John and Tim about adult safeguarding. So I wanted to make sure we got it.
Yeah.